Okay, so if I wanted to print the average salary along with other columns, so this particular query, so it is actually returning an error saying that so either this employee.id it should be in group by class. Um, in order to avoid that, and that, so I cannot have like ID column in the group by class. So we saw that that is not actually returning like intended results, right? Okay, another way what we can do is like, so I'm actually trying to have this average salary. Okay, so after having like this average salary, I'm just storing that in an table, common table expression. So once I have that value in the common table expression, so I'm doing the select star from employees and then cross joining this common table expression. Okay, or I can also do something. Okay, why did I actually prefer this cross join? Okay, uh, because like if I wanted to do an inner join, so this what data do we have in the CTE table? Let's see. Okay, so this is my CTE table. Okay, so I have like a column called as average, and it has like 5116. What if I do like an inner join here? Like, so I don't have this particular average column present in my employees table, so I'll not be able to get this particular inner join work. What? So let me try with some other joins like left join. So okay, even the left that doesn't work. So let me do outer join. So outer join, cross join. So cross join, what it does is like, so let's say like I have all the columns on the table employees, and then I have a column in CTE, right? So what it does is like, so it will try to map each of these rows with all the other rows that were present in in the left side table. Okay, so this is how like we got this value, right? Okay, so just to print the average salary that is uh, across the company along with other employee details, so this is a query which I'm actually following. Okay. Okay, so do we have like any other options apart from having this particular common table expression and then doing the cross join? So can I do this in a simpler way, or do we have like any inbuilt tool that is present in SQL Server which is going to rescue me? Okay, let's see. So in order for this purpose, like we have something called as like over functions. So these are called as like window functions. Window functions. So I have something like an over class. Let me try to execute this. Select start from um, employees. Okay. So I wanted to do some. So what I wanted to get is like, so I wanted to get the average salary across all the records. So when I simply do this particular select clause, I'm just getting this error, right? So over. So what I can do is like, so I wanted to get an average salary across all the data set, right? The complete data set. Okay, so this is my query. So this accepts like over accepts like a few query items. So one is like partition partition by. You need to specify the column name, order by uh, column name. Okay, and then we have something called as like range or row. Okay, so what this range or row actually does. Okay, so this is the common syntax for window functions. So we have like so we can use like these aggregate functions in combination with this over clause. So I'll just execute the query which we want and see, and then I'll try to explain it over here. Okay, so I wanted to do the average salary, and then what's partition. So I don't want to partition my data. So I wanted to have the average salary getting calculated across all the data. So that's the reason why like I'll have only the order by clause. Okay, order by salary. See, we didn't get the intended result, right? Okay, um, so I'll just show. So order by the over clause. Okay. So here we can see. So with the same query, like I'm able to get the same data, uh, average average salary along with the actual salary, and then other employee details. So previously, like I was actually using the common table expression, and then I'm doing a cross join, right? So now I just avoided that, and with the with the use of like over clause, so I'm able to get the average salary printed for all the employees. So that's the beauty of like over clause and then window functions. Okay. Now let's see, like, so previously, like we saw different syntaxes available for these average different syntaxes. This is a syntax that is available for this over clause, right? So let's see what this over clause does, and what's the actual meaning of this partition by and then order by. What is this range actually does? We'll just see that. Okay. So partition by, for now, let's ignore the partition by clause. Okay. So I'll just simply have uh, order by clause. So previously, like having an order by clause, order by salary. So I got a different result. So it's a weird result, right? So what is why is not actually calculating the actual? So my intention is to calculate the actual sal average of out of all these 12 columns. But here I'm not able to calculate the average of all the total 12 columns except the last column. So what is happening with this query syntax? So let's see that. Okay. So in this case, so what SQL Server is actually trying to do is like it is actually trying to calculate this particular average in a cumulative way. Okay, so let me just show you what it does. Okay. Um, okay, so I have like my intention is to have like average salary, and then I have an over clause, and with this over clause, like I have inside this over clause, like I gave my order by it, right? Okay, so let's see. Here, if we compare the first row, the salary, and then the average salary, let me rename this. So if we see here, like the first for the first column, like my average salary is almost the same as like the salary component. Whereas coming back to the second record, like I have like 3750. Let's see what this 3750 actually denotes. Like it is nothing but like 3500 plus 4000 equal to 7500 divided by 2. Okay. So that is my average salary. So in the second item, like the next thing, so what's the average value for this third item actually? Like for the third item, it is like 4000 plus 4000, 8000, 8,000, 9,000, 12,000. So it's like 12,000, 12,000 divided by 3 rows. So it's an average for 3 rows. So which is equivalent to 4,000. So 12,000 plus 5,000, it is like 17,000. 17,000 divided by 4 records. So I have like, in this record, I'm just calculating the average of 4 records, right? Divided by 4. So equal to 4250. But unfortunately, like I got some other value, like 54571. Okay, so let's see like what this 4571 actually denotes. Okay, so let me try to calculate the average for all the 7 items. Like so this is for the first 3 records, it is like 12,000, um, 12,000 plus these are the 5 records, like 1, 2, 3, 4 records. This is like 20,000, which is equivalent to like 32,000. Okay, so how many records I have? Like I have 7 records almost, like so I have like 7 records. Let's try to do this average. So now you can see like the average is equivalent to 4571. So what is actually happening here? So when we are actually specifying over clause with an order by salary, in this case, it is actually trying to calculate the cumulative averages. Okay, so it is taking, so it is actually trying to calculate the average row by row. So in the first record, like it is 3,500. The second record is nothing but like an average of first two records. Third record is nothing but an average of first three records. Coming to this fourth record, so in this case, like what SQL Server is actually doing, so instead of adding these four records, like 12,000 plus 5,000, which is nothing but like 17,000, uh, 17,000 divided by 4, which is equivalent to 4250. SQL Server is trying to behave in a different way. So what is actually, what it is actually trying to do? So okay, so it found like there are 4 records which has the same value. So what it does is like, so for all these 4 records, so it didn't actually calculate for each record. So it calculated from 7th record to the first record, and then for these 7 records, so it calculated the average and then placed it to this 5,000 against this 5,000. Okay, so let's see like what this uh, what the 8th record actually, like how it is actually calculated. So initially, like we have 12,000 plus 20,000. 12,000 plus 20,000 is nothing but like 32,000. 32,000 plus, here like I have 5,500 for 3 records, like 5,500 plus 5,500 plus 5,500. So which is equivalent to 48,500. So how many rows? These are like 10 records. So the average is like 4850. Okay. So that is the current behavior like which we are actually seeing with over, and then simply specifying order by salary. Okay. So current behavior like we are actually seeing. Okay. So let's see like having so this is order by, right? So what SQL Server is internally trying to make use of is like, so when we, let's ignore the partition by for now, like, okay, so in this case, like we have the order by column. So along with this order by, yeah, so along with this order by, so whenever like we have this order by column, so it will actually default to something like some syntax like this. Okay. So I'll just explain what that syntax is. So let me copy this, and then I'll also have a second plus. Okay, so let me try to execute this. Okay, so we see like 3,500, 3,037, 3,750, 4,000, these values, right? Let's try to execute this value. Okay, so we are actually seeing the same values. Like the last one is like 565166. Okay, so in this case, by default, like we saw this syntax, right? So in this syntax, like in the or clause syntax, so sometimes like the partition by column is optional in some cases, and also like this order by clause, and then the range or row query. So these are like optional values. Okay, so these are all optional. By default, like when we specify order by column, so in this case, like it actually takes this range between unbounded preceding and current row as a default value for the calculation part. So I can just show you this particular thing over here, like in the notes. Okay, so here you can see, so if order by is not specified, the entire partition is used. So what is a partition actually? So if we take this particular data set, so we have like different records, right? So we can partition these this data. Let's say like I want to partition data based on the salary. So this is one record. So this will be one partition. This is one record. This will be another partition. So this is an individual record. So this is another partition. These 4 records, so they'll form as like one partition. So a partition is nothing but like all similar kind of records, so they'll be grouped together, like they can be considered as a single group, single partition. So again, like these 3 records, so they'll be considered as like one partition. So these come under like one partition. Okay, So that's the definition of partition. Okay, so if order by is not specified, entire partition is used by the window frame. So we'll see that case. This applies only to functions that do not require order by clause. So there are like some functions, aggregate functions or window functions, which do require like order by clause. Okay, we'll just cover them in the later classes. Okay. So okay, what if rows or range is not specified but order by is specified? Just in this case. Okay, so in this case, like I didn't specify rows or orders, but still I have like my order by clause. So if rows or range is not specified by, but order by is specified, range unbounded preceding and current row is used for as a default for Windows Front. Okay. This applies only to the functions that accept optional range, rows or range specifications. Okay. So from this, like what we understand is like, so this particular syntax is almost equivalent to this syntax. So this is the default value that it took. Okay. Okay. So this is the behavior. So what this actually specifies, so when we actually specify the range between unbounded preceding and then current row, so when we say like unbounded preceding, so what it does is like, so it is actually trying to take the first record of our data set, okay, and then preceding. So let's say like I'm in the first record, so unbounded preceding, so this doesn't have like any preceding record, so this will be my first record, and then end current row, so this is my current row. So the average is calculated between the previous record and the current record. So in this case, like I don't have like a previous record, so it is taking the current record as an and then calculating the average. Coming to this particular record, so in this case, what's happening? So we have like unbounded preceding. Okay, so so what it is instructing SQL Server is like, okay, from starting to current record to this record, okay, calculate all the calculate the average. So it is actually trying to calculate the average. So the same case, like when I'm in third record, so it is actually trying to take all these values, like from the first value to the third record, and then it is actually trying to calculate average. So, but here, like in this case, like we saw that it is not actually calculating from the first record to the fourth record, but it is actually calculating the average of like first record to the seventh record, right? So in this case, like in the case of range, what is actually happening is like, so it is whenever there are like repeated rows, so it is actually trying to group them all together and then calculate the average from the first record to the last record of that particular group. Okay, so that is the reason why like we have like 4571 for all these items. Okay, so that is another thing. So do we have this is the case. So there is another option, something like this. Okay, so I wanted to have like average salary. So there is something like, so if you see here, like it is saying if rows or range. So also in the syntax, like if you see, so it has something like, yeah, it has like either rows or range, right? Okay. So let's say like what this row actually does. Okay. So no, so it is actually rows. Okay, so here we can see. So again, this is all the common thing. So between and then unbounded preceding row. So which specifies like I wanted to calculate from the first record to the current record. So these items are almost the same. Coming back to this particular item, okay. So here like we have something like 8,000, 9,000, 12,000. 12,000 plus 5,000 is equal to 17,000, which is nothing like 17,000 divided by 4 records. I have like 4 records. So it is equivalent to 4,000, 4,250. So in the similar way, like I have, so for the fifth row calculation, it is actually taking like 17,000 plus 5,000. 17,000 plus 5,000 is nothing but 22,000. So divided by like 5 records, I have 5. So which is equivalent to 4,400. So it is actually calculating the average salary for each of these records. So which is not the case with range. So with range, it is actually trying to calculate. So if there are like similar values, so it is going to the last value and then calculating, and then it is assigning the same average value to all the similar records, right? But in case of rows, it is behaving in a different way. So for each row, it is actually making use of these unbounded proceedings and then the current row. So that is the thing. Okay. Okay, so when we don't actually specify like any of these things like ranges or rows, this particular syntax with our order by clause in the over function over. Okay, so in that case, like by default, it is actually making use of this range. Okay, so if we wanted to make use of this rows, so then we need to explicitly specify this particular rows and then calculate. Okay. So that is one thing. Another option which we have like okay, but still okay. Now I wanted to, so I have like range and rows. So unbounded preceding is nothing but like from starting, like I wanted to calculate the current row. But what if I wanted to do like an average salary of the entire data set? So let's say like even though I'm like in fourth record or fifth record, but still I wanted to have the average salary of all these records. Okay. So in that case, like what we can do is like, so instead of specifying this as like current row, so we can just specify this as like unbounded row. So when we specify this as like unbounded row, okay, unbounded current row. So it is like, so it is like unbounded. Okay. So in this case, let me try to execute the first query. So here we can see, so yeah, so when I specify like unbounded following, so what it is actually trying to do. So SQL Server, it is actually trying to calculate this average function over from this value to the unbounded proceeding in the sense like unbounded. So it is like the first value and then unbounded following. So it is calculating up to this value. Okay. So unbounded following. So that's the reason why like I have like same average salary for all these records. So a shortcut for this particular syntax using these unbounded records and unbounded salary is nothing but like we can simply, instead of specifying all these items, so I can simply specify this over without in the braces. So in this case, like it will make use of this unbounded preceding and then unbounded following. Okay. So that's the thing. So maybe like we got a gist of what this unbounded, what this over by clause actually looks like, what this over by clause is used for, and then what is this purpose of this order by salary, and then range or rows, specifying range of rows. So now we'll just go back to, so if we see our syntax, so we have like partition by column and then order by column and range, right? So let me try to execute this partition, have this partition by column. Okay. So just copy these values. So I wanted to do a partition on salary. I can do a partition on gender maybe. Okay. So what I wanted to get is like for each gender, what is the average salary? So what's the gender partition by gender? So let's see what. So before that, let me execute this particular query. Select staff from employees. So this is my query. Order by gender. So you can see like I have 5 employees, female employees, and then 7 male employees. Okay. So if I wanted to calculate the average salary for each of these genders, so what we do in the regular process is like select uh, average of salary, comma, gender, average of salary from employees group gender. So I actually wanted to group based on the gender and then get the salary, right? Average. So let's execute this. So this is the average salary. So the average salary for female is like 5,000, and then for male it is like 5285. So if I wanted to print this average salary based on gender, and then along with that, like, so I also wanted to print like, so what is the actual along with this actual data. So let's see, like, if I can do that. So unfortunately, like, it complains like my employee ID, the initial problem which I got. Okay. So let's see, like, if I can make use of these queries, like, okay. If we can make use of this average salary and then over clauses, okay. Make use of my window functions. Okay, so okay, so here, like, if you see my data, so I have like two groups. So based on the gender, so this is one group and the other group, and this is the other group. So what I wanted to do is like, so I wanted to partition all the data that is based on this gender. So when I do like partition by gender, so this will be one partition and this will be my other partition, right? Okay. So after that, like, what I'm actually doing, so I'm actually ordering by salary, and then so let's try to execute this query and see what the output is. Okay, so here we can see. So I have like 5 employees with female, and then these are the male employees. Okay, so again I have like the same thing. So when I'm doing a partition based on gender, and then I'm actually trying to. So let's say, like, if I don't want to specify my order clause at all. Okay, so order clause is also optional. So in this case, what happens? Okay, so here, like, we are actually doing the partition, but we are not doing any order by. So we are not ordering on the data. Okay, so here, like, we can see, so we have like, this is the average, right? 5,005 to 85. So in this case, like, when I'm not specifying any order by clause, so it is actually trying to calculate the average for all the columns of this particular partition. Okay, so let's see, like, what's the average for this particular partition. 5,500 plus 4,000 plus 3,500 plus 12,000. 20,000 divided by 5, so which is equivalent to 5,000. Okay, so we got the average, total average. So what if I specify like the order by clause? So when I specify the order by clause, so previously, like, as I mentioned, so whenever we specify the order by clause, the default value for this item is range between unbounded preceding and the current row, right? So in this case, like, so this is only when I specify the order by clause. If I don't specify the order by clause, so it doesn't actually take care of consider this, and then it will actually do an average of the entire data. Okay. So how this actually behaving? Okay. So here, like, we can see, so okay, this is the first employee, unbounded preceding, and then the current row 3,500. So this is my second employee, 3,500 plus 3,500 plus 4,000 divided by 2, which is nothing but like 3,750. Okay. Uh, just 3,750. Okay. And you can see like, so in this group, so it is data is not actually repeating. So that is the reason why. So this will actually calculate from the starting to the current record, and then it will have the average value as that particular value. But here, like in the male employee section, you can see like there are some repeating items. So these items, these three items, which are actually repeating. So that's the reason why, like, if we see 4,500 plus 4,500, it is like 4,500. Whereas, like, the average for 4,500 and 5,000 is, so 9,500 divided by 2 is nothing but like 4,750. But we got a different value. That is because range actually groups all these values and consider all these values and then calculate the average value of these records. Okay. So that is what here it is actually doing. So let's say like for the same record, if I try to make use of rows, so does it behave in a different way? Yeah, obviously. So it will actually behave in a different way. So here like we'll not see much difference. So because like here the data is not actually repeating, but in this case it is actually repeating, right? So for the first record, like it is actually calculating. So there is, so if you see, so for here, like we are actually doing partitioning by gender and then order by salary, rows between like unbounded preceding. So previous example, what we see, like when we don't have like partition by column, partition by on column. So in that case, like it is actually trying to calculate the average from the first record to the current record, right? But here in this case, so that is not here like that is not the case. So it does these calculations for each of these partitions. So in this case, the partition like here, for this record, the partition, I mean, so the average will be calculated for this record, and then row unbounded preceding will be the starting of this partition. So the starting record of this partition is this record, right? So it will actually calculate the average of these two records when the current value, when the current record we are considering is. So let's see. So we have like 5,000 plus 4,500 divided by 2, so which is nothing but like 4,750. So if we add like, okay, so 4,715 to 9,500 plus 5,000 equal to, sorry, so let's 10,000, 14,500 divided by 3. So this is nothing but like 4,833. So that's the reason why like we got 4,833. So the main point, like what we need to consider is like, so when we don't actually specify the partition, so it is actually trying to calculate the average. Like, so it is trying to calculate the average from the first record, like when we have this syntax like rows between unbounded preceding and then the current record. So from the first record, from here, like it is actually trying to calculate the average up to here. Okay, up to here. Like let's say if we are in this record. Okay, but if we specify the partition, so SQL Server will internally group this data as one partition, and then it will perform all these calculations on this particular partition itself. Like, and then it will perform all these calculations in this particular partition, and then row unbounded proceeding will be always the first record of this particular partition. Hope okay. What do we see? So this is what we saw. So the same example, let's have the partition by gender for this record. So what will be the value for this record? So what we are actually expecting. So in this case, this is actually supposed to calculate for, even though for each record, so it is supposed to calculate I mean the average from the first record to the last record of that particular group. So in this case, like we are actually partitioning by gender. So that is the reason why like, this will be one partition and this is other partition. So the average will be calculated from unbounded preceding for this particular record. For all these records will be this record, and unbounded following will be this record. So it will calculate the average from this to this record for all these records. Okay, let's execute this. So you can see like this is the average that is calculated. This is the average that is actually calculated. Uh, Now we saw like, okay, what the partition plus actually does, and also what so what's the impact of this order by clause, and then what's the default value, like if we don't specify this range or rows. So the default, whenever like we have this order by clause in the over, so the default will be always range between unbounded proceedings and then the current row. Okay. So let's see something interesting. Just show you something interesting. Okay, so let's say like I wanted to calculate the average of this record and then these. So when I'm uh, uh, so let's take this example, because like this example, the first let's take this example. Okay. So let's say like I wanted to calculate the average of, let's say like I'm in this record. So I wanted to calculate the average of the preceding record and then the next record and the current record. Okay. So in this case, my preceding record is, I don't have like any preceding record. So it will be treated as 0. So if I wanted to calculate like the average of this record and this record, like, so it is nothing but like 9,500 divided by 2, which is something like 4,4750. But when I go here, like I wanted to calculate the average of the previous record and next record and the current record. Okay. So which is nothing but like 9,500. So I'll just show you. So I have like the following syntax. Okay. So I wanted to calculate the averages of only preceding record and then the next record. Okay. So how do I do that? Okay. So in that case, like I can specify one preceding and then one unbounded following. Okay. Let me execute this. Okay. So range is actually with only this. Okay. So that cannot be applied for range. Okay. So let me take this rows. No. Yeah, so let's take this example. Okay, so here like what my intention is that, so I wanted to calculate the previous record value and then the next record value, average of this record, and then the next record and the current record. Let's say like I'm in my first record. Okay, so I wanted to calculate the average of average, something like this one, goes between one preceding and one following. So one preceding, so this record doesn't have like any preceding record. So I want, so, and but I have like one following record. So the average of these two items is like 3750, 3000. It is like 7,500 divided by 2, which is nothing but like 3750. So so what if what's the average for this particular record? So let's say like I'm in this particular record. So the preceding value for this record is 3,500, and the corresponding record, like after record, following record for this particular item is 4750, right? So it should be like 7,500 plus 4,500 equal to divided by 3, so which is nothing but like 4,000. So you can see like the 4,000 is the average for these three records. So let's say like I'm in this particular record, so what will be the average, like how is the average calculated in this case? So in this case the average is calculated for the one preceding record, which is like 4,000, and one following record, which is 5,000, and then the current record, so which is nothing but like 9,000 plus 4,500, 13,500. So 13,500 divided by 3, so which is like 4,500. So this is the value. So let's say like if I want to calculate the average for this record, so I'll consider, so from the syntax, like I'll consider like this record, and this record, which is nothing but like 10,000 plus 4,500, which is nothing but like 14,500. 14,500 divided by 3, which is equivalent to 4833. So that is how like we got these values. So let's say this value. So it has like the previous record is 5,000, current record is 5,000, and this record is 5,000. 15,000 divided by 3 is nothing but like 5,000. So that is how like this works. So let's say like I wanted to calculate the average of one preceding record and then two after record. So how do I do that? So this is one preceding record and I want to calculate for two following records. Okay. Um, so this is my first record. So when I take like my first record, so I don't have like any preceding record. So this will be my starting record, 3,500 plus I'm taking like two following records. So I have like 4,000 and then 4,500. So which is nothing but like 8,000, 8,500, 9,000, 12,000. So average of 12,000 for three records is 4,000. Okay. So that is how this value is calculated. So now let's say like I'm in this record. Okay. So when I'm in this record, so what's the current value? So I need to have like one preceding record. So which is nothing but this record, two following records, this record and this record along with this record. So I have like all these items. Okay. So it is nothing but like 3,500 plus 8,500 plus 5,000 equal to divided by how many records? So I'm in this record, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 divided by 4, which is equivalent to 4250. So that is how like we got this value. So hope you understand like what this rows and then what this particular preceding between and all these things will impact. Okay. So now let's see like how, so we saw like how this over clause and then these window functions actually behave with the average, right? So now let's try to see how this gets impacted with other items. Okay. Okay, so let me have a separate okay. So I have like average, average. Then let me add like count. Maybe you can have like count of star. Count of star or okay. So in this case, like, so let's take this example, unbounded for let's first example should be the default one. So let me remove this item, remove this thing. So when I don't specify like anything, so when I don't specify anything, so here you can see. So basically we saw about the average, right? So now let's see like how this count actually behaves. So the count is actually behaving in the same way. So whenever like I specify order by salary, so in this case, the default syntax is nothing but like this syntax, right? It makes use of range. So which is nothing but, which is almost equivalent to this thing. So the default thing is like this is when I don't specify range or rows, when I have like order. So this and this are same. So this is the default value when I specify order and if I don't specify range or rows. Okay. So in this case, like, okay, let's see what is actually happening. Okay. So it is actually trying to count these records and then I'm just using this over clause. So order by salary and then I'm just ordering by salary and then I'm just trying to find the range. Okay, so range between unbounded proceedings and then the current record. So when here, like I'm actually ordering by salary, so that's the reason why like my salary is in increasing more. So let's make this small change. Like I'll make it as like ID and see like what the results look like. Okay. So I'm just having like order by ID. So you can see like it is all the weird thing, right? So let me have this example copied so that we'll discuss this later. So even in this case, like I'll have ID. Okay. So you can just see, you can simply see this. Uh, okay, so I'm just actually ordering based on the ID. So this is my thing. So the average for the first record. So when I don't specify anything, so this is the range and that calculation. So we already see. Let's see the count part. Okay. So how is this count actually behaving? So it is behaving in the same way. Like okay, so I have like order over, and then I'm just ordering by ID. So the range is something like between unbounded preceding and then the current row. Okay. So it is actually taking this record. So and then it is actually calculating. Yeah, so it is actually calculating the first count as one. So this is count as two, three, four. So these up to the fourth item. So you can see, so because as I have like order by which is present on ID, so these are all like unique values, right? So that is the reason why like I'm seeing all these unique items. So even though I'm using range, so let me make this query salary itself. I wanted to order based on salary. So in that case, like how does this count actually behave? Like, okay, so there is a change in the count. Okay, so I'm actually doing an order on the salary. Okay, so this is my first record. So when I in for this record, so this is the first record. So this is my second record, third record. Okay, so whereas like these three items, so they fall under the same category, like so they have like same values. So that is why the range is calculated for the last item from the top one. So how is the range actually calculated? So it is actually calculated from, we are using unbounded preceding, which is nothing but like the top one and then the current record. So it went up to this particular record. So the range is calculated as 7. So I have like 7 records, the count. So that is how like I got this value. So 7, and this is applied to all these values. So whereas with other items, so when I use range, so you can see for other items. So for the 8th item, so I got like the value as 10. So why did I get this value as 10? That is because so it has like 7 as it is actually taking this particular mm, yeah, so I have like 7, and then all these items like 5,500, they all belong to one group, right? So it went up to this particular position, and from the starting to this value, so the count is like 10 records. So it applied this 10 to all these 3 records. So whereas like for this particular 11th record, it is 11, and 12th record, it is 12. Okay. So that is how the range is actually behaving. So let me change this to row. And see like how it actually behaves. So when I specify it as a row, so it is not actually supposed to group these together and then calculate the value and have this value and place this value in. So let's see if that is not happening or not. Okay, yeah, that is what it is happening. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So for each of the record, like it is actually calculating from the top and how many records. It is actually calculating count of records from the top, and then it is actually placing. Okay, so we saw like this is for current row. So this is the default behavior. If I don't specify order, so I'll have like range between unbounded preceding and current row. So what if I wanted to have like the total count? So there are like 12 records, right? I wanted to have like total count for all placed between all these records. So then, so just like my unbounded preceding, I also have like unbounded following. Okay. So when I use this, so it will actually calculate. So from the first record for each of these records, so it will calculate the count from first record to the last record. So I have like 12 records. So I got like 12. So that is the thing. So this is almost equal. This is equivalent to this syntax. So without not specifying anything. Okay. So this is equivalent to not specifying anything. Okay. This is what we saw. So let's change this to ID, and then I did see how the results are actually. So unbounded following. So in this case, like even though like we don't have any groups or something like that, so but it is still actually like because I'm taking from unbounded proceeding the first record and unbounded following, so it is calculating the count for all the records and then placing it here for each of these records. Okay. So let me use like current row. Previously, like if you remember, so when I have like salary, when I have this particular just let's ignore this column. Okay. Doesn't make any sense. Okay. So we are actually doing this average on salary. So when we use this average of salary and then rows, okay, so it is actually calculating the count for each of these records. So it is actually trying to increment the value for each record. But when I use range here, so for similar items, so it is actually calculating and placing this value. Okay. Uh, that is for salary, because like I have in my salary, like I have a few groups. So if I simply use this particular row ID, so then these are not repeating values. So it for each row, so it will calculate uh, the count from the starting record to the current row. So even if I use the range here, like this doesn't make any impact, like it doesn't change. That is because like so the salary is actually repeating. So salary is actually repeating, but not the ID values, right? So that is the reason why, like for each record, it will calculate the count from the first record to the current record. So this is an example of count. So order by ID and then range. Okay, what else? What else do you want to show? So let's see like how this actually behaves for our sum. Okay. So I'll have this sum. So when I don't specify anything in order by, so which is nothing but like a range between unbounded preceding and current row. So let's say how. Yeah. So let's see like how the sum is actually calculated. So this is the default syntax, right? So when I don't specify anything after the order by, so this is the one it takes. Okay. So for the first record, so do we have like any unbounded proceedings? No, this is the first record, right? Okay. So current row, and this is the current row. So the sum, this is sum. So that's the reason why like I have 3,500 as sum. Okay. So now I'm in my second record. So I have like unbounded proceedings and then the current row. So my unbounded proceeding in the sense like it will calculate from the first record to the current record. So that is the reason why like I have 7,500. Okay. For the third record. So 7,500 plus 4,500, which is nothing but like 12,000. So coming to these items, so when we by default, like when I don't specify anything like either range or row, so it is actually taking range and between unbounded preceding and then the current row, right? Unbounded preceding and current row. So in this case, what is actually happening? So in this case, so it is actually, it found like SQL Server found like, so there are like 4 items like with value, same value 5,000. So let me try to calculate the total for these 4 records, so which is equivalent to 20,000. And then it will add this particular, these items. So what it does is like, so just like the other items like average or count, so it found like 5,000 and it identified like there are like 4 items with 5,000. So then it went up to this point and then it calculated the total, the sum from unbounded preceding, which is nothing but like my first record to the current record. So which is equivalent to 32,000, and this is actually placed with other records. Okay. So for this particular record, again, like we have like 32,000 plus these are the three records, right? So 15,000, 16,500. So which is equivalent to, so that is the reason why like we have 48,500. So now we are in this record, like, okay, so we have like 48,500, which is the sum of all these records. And this record is added like 6,500. So this is with range. So let's see like how this actually behaves for rows. Okay. Okay. So ideally, like for rows, it is nothing but like it is supposed to calculate from E for each of the rows, unlike like the range, which is actually which will actually calculates for groups. Okay. So here, like it is calculating for the first record. This is second record, third record, first sum of first record to third record. This is sum of first record to fourth record. This is sum of first record to fifth record. The same way, like it calculated up to this 12th record. Okay. So this is for rows. So we also saw like unbounded, like if I wanted to calculate the sum of like this record, preceding record, and then the corresponding after record. So in that case, like I'll have like one preceding record and then one following. Okay. So which is nothing but like, okay, so for this record, when I'm in this record, so I'm saying like I wanted to calculate the sum for one preceding record and following record, current record. So there is no preceding record for this record. So that is the reason why like we have, it is for this record, it is taking this record and this record. So which is equivalent to 7,500. So when I'm in this record, second record, so it is actually, it will calculate the sum for one preceding record, which is 3,500, and current record 4,000, and one following record, which is nothing but like 4,500. So and the total sum of these items is nothing but like 8,500, 9,000, 3,000, 12,000. So this is 12,000. So let's say like I'm in this record. So for this record, how does it calculate? So one preceding record, current record, and one following record. So which is nothing but like 8,500 plus 5,500, which is nothing but like 13,500. So when I'm in this record, so it will calculate the sum for 4,500, 5,000, and 5,000. So which is nothing but like 14,500. This is how it is actually calculating. So if I have like two records, so if I can increment this like two. So when I do like two, so it actually calculates something like this. So first record, and then two following records, this one, so which is nothing but like 8,500 plus 3,500, 12,000. So when I'm in this record, so one preceding record and then two following records, so up to these I think 5,000, 4,500, 4,000, 3,500. So the sum is equivalent to 17,000. 3,500 plus 4,000, which is 7,500, 8,000, 8,000 plus 4,500, 12,500. Oh, wait, 7,500, 8,000, 12,000, 17,000. Okay, so this is how it is calculated. So what if I wanted to have the consistent value? I wanted to display the sum of entire columns. So then, so I'll specify like uncounted preceding and uncounted following. So what this says is like, so irrespective of these items, so it is supposed to calculate irrespective of the current row. So it is supposed to calculate the sum for from starting record to nth record, like all last record, and it should have that value. So I should get something like 62,000. Okay, so this is my count, which is displayed. Okay, so let's see like the count. So we actually didn't see count of salary, unbounded, one preceding and then one following. So let's just see. So we have like 2 and 3s, and the last record it is 2. This is because, so when I'm in this record, one preceding, so there is no preceding record for this one. and then one following. So, and current record. So this is current record. There is no preceding record, and we have like one following record. So the total is 3. So when I am in this record, so I have like one preceding record and one following record and current record. So the total is 3. So coming to this item, so I have like one preceding item and current item, but there is no following item. So that is the reason why like 2, the count is 2. Okay. So we saw like the over by clause, and then inside this over clause partition, and then order by row, and also like rows and range, um, with some of these aggregate functions. Okay. So in the next session, like what we'll see is like, so we'll see the different functions like rank, dense rank, and also row number. Okay. Thank you.